Department of Justice being run by Giuliani, Andrew McCarthy, people like that. Hillary Clinton can wind up in prison. It's 10 years for each one of those top secret documents. She left them on purpose.
So she's a cornered rat, and absolutely, I think those are going to try to kill Trump or stage a false flag where somebody tries to assassinate Hillary.
Or we don't have an election because the security situation is so tenuous. If we have Mohammed and Malvo type snipers driving around shooting people middle end of October, there won't be an election. You know, the country will be on a crazy lockdown. So
you're thinking they may be, with all the Black Lives Matter and the rest of it, clearly thinking to have a civil emergency before the election.
Well, they've been provoking it. That's what happened with Dallas.
Sure, undoubtedly. All right, Matt Bracken, we're going to come back, take some calls, then have you continue to break things down into the next hour as part of the 28-hour live broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the globalists have basically put us into a cultural trance. If you just wake up to it, it's over. And they're desperately trying to keep people in that trance. And I think they're going to bring in incompatible groups that are going to attack us, but by political correctness then, we'll be taught and learn to stand down to it and go along with it. That's not happening. Just InfoWars is exponentially growing to be, in many cases, much larger than major mainstream media outlets. And when you put out the truth, it isn't like it has to be reapplied over and over again like lies. It's irrevocable. So when you spread the links to the podcast, to the live feed, or to the videos and articles we write, or when you support us and get high-quality products at InfoWarsStore.com with the biggest sales in our history running right now, 40% off on many of the nutraceuticals, upwards of 40% off on sortable foods, all of this, you fund this operation while getting a great deal. So be sure and check out InfoWarsStore.com today, or InfoWarsLive.com. That takes you to the subpage where you can find all the nutraceuticals. We're going to take some phone calls for this segment and the next, and then we're going to continue with Mr. Bracken for one more segment about what we can do about this. But we have never been in more amazing historical times. And I've been telling folks we're going into this for a long time, but it's here. And quite frankly, I can't come up with words to describe how serious this is. Who's been holding the longest here? Sean in Michigan, and then we'll go to Ben, Nathan, Jonah, and others. Sean, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. How's it going?
Good, brother.
Hey, I want to give a shout-out to Sean, my brother, Bleicher, B-L-E-I-C-H.
All right, brother. Hey, I appreciate that. We can't do a lot of shout-outs, though, because sometimes folks do it to harass people. I'm sure you're a great guy, but we can't do it. Sean, what's your question for the guest?
Well, if he was to look at my Facebook, he would know who am I.
All right, I got to go. I appreciate your call, Sean. Let's go to Jonah in Canada. Let's talk to folks in Canada. Jonah, you're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Jones. How's it going?
Good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to call and get a little bit of a touch base on the video you released where Putin is warning the media about we're close to war.
Talking about Putin?
I've been researching and I've just been noticing that NATO is kind of instigating the fights over in Eastern Europe.
I'm glad you noticed. NATO's all along Russia's border. They've been supporting jihadis. They overthrew the Ukrainian government. I'm not saying Russia's perfect, but Russia is not expanding. The globalists are starting a war with them. Please continue.
Well, it's not even just that. It's the buildup. There's 4 battalions that are getting sent, and Canada is heading one, but the other ones they're all going to the border.
They're doing war games and massing troops on the border, and proxy troops and mercenaries have been battling Russians in the eastern part of Ukraine for a long time. Let's get Matt. Let's get the rest of your take on that, caller. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's that along with the missile silos and everything that are going to be ready to fire upon Russia whenever they want. They say it's for defense, but it's more.
Sure, I know. But Putin came out a month ago and said this is in danger of nuclear war. We move missiles onto your border. What would you do, Mr. Bracken?
Well, it's part of the same fabric, I think, to foment a crisis that's so bad that there would be blowback that would be believable and acceptable that we would perceive as being part of the larger war. For example, if the grid went down, if the internet went out, and when the internet came back on, assuming it ever came back on, people like you, me, and some others might not be around anymore. That's sort of the Turkish Reichstag coup, but instead of a coup, you have a war that would be so devastating that we would just believe that, hey, the internet went down.
That's right. And Matt, stay there. We're going to come right back. Caller, stay there, Jonah. I'm going to come back and let you have a comment back. But the globalists have created a huge Ponzi scheme to suck up all the wealth, build their yachts, their offshore bases. Now they need to burn the whole house down politically to distract from the heist they've done. And a big war historically is the perfect way to do it. Back in 70 seconds, I'm Alex Jones. Truth is, we're the real liberals. Those that promote Orthodox Islam and globalism and communism are the losers. They can't compete with an open society. They don't want to be on a level playing field. That's why they're despots. And that's why it's time for the sleeping giant that is humanity to rise up in the information war and affect the future battle space. So when the New World Order launches its final takedown, they will be brought down and not us. All right, Jonah in Canada, finish comeback to what Bracken just said to your point.
Perfect. Yeah. So like I was saying, the buildup of forces in Eastern Europe is the biggest threat to human survival.
Yeah, if the Russians were massing troops on our border like that, I would be saying get ready for war. I would be pissed.
Yeah. And obviously Russia is just going to counter that by bringing more troops. And then our media only reports that. So then it looks like, oh, they're going to say they're building troops, so we have to build more troops. Exactly.
Let's go back to Bracken. Great point. I mean, here's the issue. Russia, compared to us more and more, is like promoting freedom because we're run by such authoritarians. What's the authoritarian, because you're a soldier, smart guy, what is the calculus on just starting a war with Russia out of nothing and trying to hype it in the media and having the heads of NATO and generals say, we need lots of dead Russians on Fox News?
Yeah, I was actually a Russian studies major, so it's kind of interesting for me in that way. I've always followed very closely, going back through Russian history. I tie this directly to the DNC email scandal. You can see how the globalists, their immediate go-to boogeyman now is Russia. This is important to me more for as a matter of messaging and how the media can all take the same talking point. I saw something.
It's okay that Hillary stole the primaries because the Russians don't like it.
The Russian, but it wasn't North Koreans like Sony. Right away it was Russians. Now, we have heard only a little bit of scan information that could actually point really that way. One of the things was something real simple like, well, one of the hackers was using a Cyrillic language keyboard. In my world, that would mean not Russia, because at this level, unless it was just a Russian hacker like, in his mother's apartment. But I mean, if it's Russian government level, then the false trail would be led through a Chinese keyboard or a North Korean keyboard.
Sure, but I mean, my issue is, who cares if Russia did it? They're exposing carbon taxes and Hillary stealing elections.
Well, but here's the thing. Russia would have less motive than anybody. So to me, this is like a false victim targeting thing by the globalists, because if the Russians, I assume that they have all of the 30,000 emails, the top security stuff included, that was on her server, along with the Iranians, the Chinese, and anonymous hackers, they would want Hillary to be in the White House so that they could blackmail her, so they could dangle some damning top secret SCI, SAP program stuff.
That's a good point.
Say, this is in Drudge Report tomorrow, unless we do this deal. But as far as a war with Russia goes, I think that once again, it's a question of trying to ride the tiger and calibrate just when you're going to jump off. A plan to ride a tiger is not the same as riding the tiger. A plan to lead up to war with Russia, but not have a war, to just foment a crisis that'll be part of the background for why there's no election this fall is more likely. Now, a lot of wars begin where they thought it would just be a bluff. We're just going to bluff them and they're going to back down. And that's how wars sometimes begin. But remember, both of these sides have nuclear weapons.
No, you're right. I mean, doesn't this, Matt, historically, though, show that we really have an out-of-control elite? I mean, this is all very reckless.
Well, the media to me is becoming they're functioning actors now. The media that, for example, are still parroting Islamophobia and the biggest
total willing accomplices. Stay there. Let's talk about that, because never has the media been so in sync with the corrupt elements that have hijacked our government. More calls as well from Bosnia, New York, Tennessee, Canada, Florida. I have two different sheets. I have the 28-hour rundown of who's coming on, and then I have this other sheet just for the first 3-4 hours, and I didn't have William Binney, former technical director of the National Security Agency, who's going to come on and talk about the fact that They weren't allowed to look at Islamic terror. They were told to spy on everybody. That's when he resigned in 2001 after the attacks. And then they SWAT teamed his house, the rest of it. He said they had systems to absolutely shut this down. He's the guy that ran the operations against the Russians, one of the greatest mathematicians and code breakers ever. The guy's an idiot savant. I mean, he's not dumb when you talk to him. He's super smart. It's scary, scary smart, talking about the different ways they do these things. And I'm not bragging, but I was talking about some of the interdimensional lenses and signatures and things. And he was like, how do you know about that? And it was from doing some research years ago, my dad telling me about how they really break codes. And it's some pretty heavy stuff. But there's a lot of stuff going on. The point is that science has gotten to a very, very high level. And I'm just going to stop right there because I don't even completely understand it. But it's reached the level of like magic at this point. I want to ask Matt Bracken up next week because so much is happening. This is intensifying. Unfortunately, his analysis more and more is coming true. And his warning is so important. I know we have loaded phones here from Bosnia and from all over the place. You'll get to talk to William Binney, obviously, when he is joining us. But just finishing up with Matt Bracken, clearly we have an insane elite, Matt, and I just hope that the Pentagon and others that have been more sane, like General Flynn, exposing that Obama and others were backing ISIS and al-Qaeda, I hope that somehow we're able to derail what's happening. I'm not lionizing the Pentagon, but they seem to be really resisting a lot of this insanity because they don't want to, have their grandkids killed or kids killed, I guess. They're not psychopaths. But the actual elite running things, these globalists, these socialists, these George Soros types are very messianic. I mean, Soros has given interviews where he says he believes he's basically the Christ. These people are insane, and I don't see how we stop them because even though they're frauds, even though they're collapsing, they're in power. And I agree with you. I think they're going to try to kill Trump. I think if Trump gets into power, before he actually gets into office, they might pull something big. I mean, we're seeing things happen in this country that have never happened before, and it seems like the establishment doesn't care what we know or what we do. They're acting like they know something we don't know, Matt.
Yeah, I think that the train is heading for a bridge that's not there, possibly, and that's what they know. And that they've got a plan for a siding, but the rest of us go over the edge. Then they declare it an emergency, and how unfortunate it is. As far as things that we can do, I think that, I despair of waiting for any generals or senior FBI. SES is what they call Senior Executive Service. Those are the civilian generals that run all of these agencies. I'm waiting for any resignations other than Phil Haney. I really haven't seen any, whistleblowers, which is really a shame. So we have to accept the fact that FBI, DHS, they've been suborned. They're being run by Muslim Brotherhood, either knowingly or as useful idiots. But where it's going to matter is these refugees. The refugees are a battlefront. The refugees are part of this war. They're a fulcrum of this war. If your town accepts 100 Muslim men called children, but they could be 30 and they're saying that they're 16. If your town accepts them, your town is screwed. Your town just got 100 Hitler Youth, for example, going back to my 1930s analogy. So we need to put pressure on law enforcement at the local and state level not to cooperate with the feds who have clearly been suborned by team tyranny. So if, for example, if you're in local law enforcement and you're tasked with providing coverage at a demonstration where the FBI is going to come into town with a half dozen guys and they're expecting 50 local law enforcement to be their muscle, refuse to cooperate. The people that know when these secret flights are coming in at night, getting loaded onto the big buses, taken to rehabilitated, bankrupt hotels, which are now being used as secret refugee transit centers. The people that know this information need to leak it. If you're not part of team tyranny and team treason, then you need to at least be calling Alex Jones.
That's right, because if you don't leak it or resist it, you're actually on that team. And
you'll be treated that way.
Here's my final point. That's it. Our own media and the European media, now the name is Ali. They change it to David, and then they give him an English last name as well, surname. They will not say when it's an Allah Akbar or pledge to ISIS. It's unified information warfare that you wouldn't just expect your own government to use. It's such black propaganda that you would only expect it to be used by an authoritarian state. And then it's used against us. So what I'm saying is, I've never seen them take the gloves off like this and put brass knuckles on. This is clearly a military operation. There's got to be 100 times the refugees they're saying coming in.